Thanks for joining us again for another podcast or another episode of Real Parables, our podcast. We love doing this podcast, and today we're doing it on Ponyo, which I don't think a lot of people have seen Ponyo.
I don't think so.
It's kind of like a hidden treasure.
If there's cult classics for Disney, this would probably be one of those cult classic-ish kind of movies.
It's one of the Studio Ghibli movies, or Ghibli, not sure how you pronounce that, but they're these Japanese movies that Disney has dubbed to American actors, so it's easier for us to understand.
Still not super easy.
I know some people prefer subbed. There's a whole dubbed versus subbed argument.
Yeah, Bella prefers just reading the subtitles with the...
Yeah.
So I guess that'd be a sub.
I think it depends on what you're watching. Like the Squid Game show that came out, pretty terrible dubbed.
That's what I've heard.
The American actors were terrible, but that's not what we're watching today.
We're not reviewing that today.
I don't
think that falls in the genre of
yeah. We watched Ponyo, and if you haven't listened to this podcast before, what we basically do is we try to find parables in modern day stories, which are typically in the form of movies or TV shows. So what we do is we like finding some of our favorite movies that we like to watch and finding the parables in those. And we kind of feel like that's what Jesus would do today. Is if he was in the world today, he would use parables from the stories that we know, much like he did in the Bible. Those were the stories that they knew, and Jesus used them for his Christian message.
Back then, people knew about sheep, and they knew about harvesting, and they knew about that kind of stuff. You know, millstones. We don't necessarily know those things nowadays.
Not
we
exactly.
know about movies and TV and pop culture. So I think Jesus would use that.
Yeah. So as always, spoiler alert: do not watch this do not listen to this if you have not watched the movie yet.
Or watch it if you're watching this on YouTube.
Yeah, you could. It's a children's movie. I really enjoy this movie. I don't know if you necessarily love it.
It's not one of my favorites.
Yeah.
I'm not a big fan of anime. Of any kind. I have not liked. There's not one anime that I've seen that I've liked. There's plenty of people who try to convince me, oh, well, you'll definitely like this one.
Yeah.
And it hasn't happened yet.
Well, that might be a challenge for me. I might try to find one that you like.
The closest that I have found to that anime style would be the Batman Joker Ninja Samurai one that they did.
Yeah.
That was pretty good.
Okay.
Yeah. But I don't know that that's necessarily anime. But it's in that style.
It's on the lines of it.
It's on the line. So that's about as close as I've come to enjoying something. But that was more enjoying the story rather than the actual style that it was in.
This was the first Studio Ghibli movie that introduced me to all of his movies, which I had not seen them before. Lauren actually is the one, because this is the movie one of her childhood movies she watched a lot growing up. She watched this, and I think
my kids watch this all the time.
She watched Kiki's Delivery Service too, which isn't also in that same.
My kids watch this probably at least once a week.
Really?
They love this movie.
Wow.
Yeah. So I think there's definitely it's a generational thing, I think.
Probably.
I think it's really, I mean, there's some Gen Xers that really like, the anime style, but I think the millennials where it really started kicking in hard. So if you're a fan of anime, you'll probably like this one.
It's all about this and Bruno.
Yeah, we don't talk
about Bruno, especially not an episode on Ponyo. So this movie kind of starts out in this island somewhere in Japan. You don't really know where, but you're introduced to Ponyo first, who I forget her birth name. It's some German thing. This story is loosely based off of a German play. I found out after doing more research on it, but Broomhilda, that's what it is.
Okay.
Broomhilda is her original name. But you see Ponyo, who is this fish, this magical fish, and
is it Broomhilda? Is that like part of the Valkyrie story?
I'm not sure.
Okay. Anyways, that's a different topic.
The story that the Broomhilda story is basically a magical being falls in love with a human and becomes human for that, which is what happens in this story. So Ponyo is this fish who is being cared for by her father, Fujimoto, And Fujimoto is kind of this caretaker of the sea. The sea is actually Ponyo's mother, like the goddess of the sea. But Fujimoto is kind of the caretaker of it. He helps start life in the sea and helps keep the balance. And while he's busy creating new fish and new life forms in the sea, Ponyo decides she wants to wander off. She doesn't
Free spirit.
Yeah, she's a free spirit. She doesn't want to be tied into that life. So she wants to should choose for her own will of what she wants with her life, which is kind of where you come into the first like kind of topic of free will. And she isn't really given a choice here, but she wants to go and do this anyways. And this is the first peak of that whole becoming who you're meant to be. You kind of see in the story. And what ends up happening is she as she journeys along, she ends up getting caught in a fish net that you see is just actually just catching all these kinds of garbage and refuse. Like it's
probably pretty accurate.
Yeah, I think it is accurate. You're seeing all this garbage and disgusting stuff that it's picking up, and Ponyo gets caught in it and stuck in a glass jar, and then washes on shore. And Sasuke finds her. Sasuke, who's the one of the other main characters, and he saves Ponyo by smashing the glass, and he just thinks it's a fish. He's like, I'm just trying to save this fish, and he takes care of it and nurses Ponyo back to health, and just kind of takes him in his green little bucket, and is like, well, I'm just going to take her to school with me now.
Yeah.
So Sasuke and Ponyo hop in the car on their way to school, and then as Ponyo's mom, or not Ponyo, as Sasuke's mom is driving, they see Fujimoto on the road. He's looking for his daughter because obviously he wants to find his daughter.
The one that wandered away.
Yeah. And Lisa...
kind of like Ariel and her dad.
Yeah, honestly.
Yeah.
Sasuke's and his mom are kind of freaked out by this random dude that's just walking onto the property, and he's dressed pretty oddly too, and he's spraying what appears to be, it looks like chemicals he's spraying all over the ground, but really it's just water because he doesn't want to dry out, you know? He's like, this is the finest ocean water. This isn't weed killer. And then as they're getting in the car and they're driving off, Ponyo's mom said, or not Ponyo's mom, I keep getting Ponyo and Sasuke mixed up. Sasuke's mom, Lisa, calls Ponyo's dad a freak show. Which honestly, it seems pretty fair in the moment because there's this random guy walking on the property, in this weird outfit, and he's watering your grass or weed killer. You don't know what it is.
But if it's ocean water, it's going to kill the grass.
Yeah, salt water's not great for plants. You should know because you got lots of plants in your backyard.
You don't put salt water on them.
But as right after she calls Fujimoto a freak show, she says to Sasuke, you shouldn't judge people how they look. Kind of trying like to redeem herself in some way, like don't do as I do, do as I say, kind of thing. And you kind of see this judgment topic come up a couple times in the movie. Just as after Sasuke gets to school, Sasuke's friend Kimiko comes over and takes a look at Ponyo because Sasuke is talking up like, I got this cool fish that I caught. And Kimiko's like, oh, that's a pretty boring fish, and then gets squirted in the face with water. And it's funny that you don't really see that there's all this judgment that starts to happen between Fujimoto and humans because we're talking about there's lots of garbage that is in the sea, and Fujimoto really just seems to really despise humans. He hates humans. Honestly, he knows that the humans are mostly responsible for causing a lot of worldly issues. The pollution that is being caused in the ocean is like just causing a lot of destruction, and because of that, Fujimoto does not want his daughter hanging around with a human. That's the last thing he wants. You actually find out that Fujimoto has started to kind of plan the world's destruction, or not really the world's destruction, but the destruction of humans to save the world. It really is what happens.
Another common theme in movies.
Yeah, but Fujimoto just kind of assumes the worst in Sasuke. He just knows he's a human boy. While he may be just a boy, eventually he's going to
grow up.
Yeah, he's going to grow up to be a man that's going to pollute the ocean and just be a terrible person because humans are terrible. But he kind of just generalizes a statement that humans are bad, and I think that's something we're all guilty of, is judging people before we actually get to know them. And it's something I have a big issue with personally. I don't really do it to people's faces or behind their backs, but in my head, I feel like I'm a very judgmental person. I try not to be, but it happens. Do you?
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
I mean, as much as I don't think anybody wants to be labeled as, being judgmental. I mean, that's one of like the most painful things that you can tell a believer, a Christian, right? It's like, why are you being so judgmental? I mean, it's like calling somebody a racist.
Yeah.
It's like automatic defense mechanisms go up, and you're like, oh, I'm not judgmental. I'm not racist. I'm not this. I'm not that. It's like, but really, we all do it. We all, when we meet somebody that dresses a certain way, looks a certain way, acts a certain way, we have some baseline assumptions about that person. And, a lot of times those are pretty far off mark, as, maybe those assumptions are based off of what we were taught growing up as kids. Maybe they're based off of a bad experience that we've had, with somebody, or lack of experience that we've had with somebody. But yeah, I think judgmentalism is definitely something that, it's a human problem.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I think Christians are very good at judging.
We are.
I think it's something that kind of you're told not to do, but you're taught how to do it as well.
Yeah.
You're told that how good and how godlike you need to be, and so in your mind as you're growing up, you're just thinking, oh, but these people they're bad because they're not trying to be like God.
Yeah. Yeah. You're told for so long that sin is bad. People who do sin, therefore, are also bad. So, you should obviously shun them because they are bad people.
Yeah.
I have some people across the street from me that they actively practice, Wicca, witchcraft kind of stuff. And, when I first found that out, first realized that, if I'm being real honest, I had some presuppositions about them as people that I have changed over the course of knowing them now for 15 years. I realize they're just ordinary people, friendly, trying to be good neighbors.
Imagine that.
They just have a little bit of different way of approaching their faith, and that's really what it is. I mean, it's not a faith that I believe in, but it is their faith. And because of my misunderstanding of their faith and their practices, I made some pretty unchristlike judgments about them that, had they known, would have been pretty hurt by it.
Yeah.
And I'm sure it's nothing they hadn't experienced before, but they still would have been pretty hurt that, a neighbor and somebody who calls himself a Christ follower is, having these negative, ugly thoughts about them.
Yeah. So I think it's important to just do your best to show that, or to give people a chance. Just give people a chance to redeem themselves. Don't just assume the worst.
Yeah, I don't have to believe what they believe.
Yeah.
But I can still show them what Jesus told me to. He told me to love my neighbor. And it doesn't matter that my neighbor is, Wicca and into worshiping the female deity. I'm still called to love my neighbor, no matter what. There's not any stipulations. We'll love the neighbors who are like thinking to you, because if that was the case, then there wouldn't be a whole lot of people that I would have to love. Yeah. Because I have very few neighbors around me who are like-minded with me, when it comes to faith. So it's Jesus is pretty clear about our role in the community when it comes to how we should treat people. Yeah.
So we see Fujimoto really he really doesn't care. He just hates humans. Yeah. He wants Ponyo to stay a magical fish. He knows if she becomes human, she loses her magical powers. So being her dad, he wants to stop her from changing. He's seeing that she's started to transform. So at this point he's recaptured her. He has her back now, and he's trying to change her back into a fish. And Ponyo really doesn't want to. He keeps saying revert, revert, revert. And I don't have kids yet, so I can't really speak from experience. But I feel like I would really, when I have kids, I want them to be the best version of themselves.
Yeah.
But I want them. I don't want to push them to be what I want them to be. Kind of like Fujimoto is here. I feel like I really want them to just to become who they're supposed to be and who they want to be.
Yeah, and I think that's the best part about changing generations. I think my generation, the expectation is that you're to grow up and be like your parents are, and then my generation realized that there's a lot of flaws in that. That I am not ever going to be just like my parents. I can be respectful of my parents. I can understand where they're coming from, but it's okay to be who I am.
Yeah.
And then that has continued to grow in a positive way, for millennials and Gen Zers, that, it's okay for me to be different.
Yeah.
It's okay for me to be my own person. And I can love Jesus the way I feel most comfortable loving Jesus. I don't have to do it in, A, B, or C. There's options that go all the way down to Z, and I'm not an A kind of lover. I'm a Z kind of lover.
Yeah.
And that's okay. So, yeah, I know, even with when it comes to just our ministry team, think of how differently, all of us are worshipers of God.
Yeah.
And, in God's eyes, he doesn't care. There's not one that's better than the others. You know? He's not more favorable of, Matt's worship than he is of, Lauren's worship.
Yeah.
And that is such a cool aspect of the God that we serve, is he just wants to have his children close to him. And, whatever way that takes on is completely okay with him. So, and I'm glad that the generationally wise, that's becoming more acceptable.
Yeah. I think that's a great thing. And I hope it continues to be like that.
Yeah.
I mean, I definitely want to see some of myself in my kids someday. Like, I feel like,
and there'll be parts that are there.
I tried really hard to be different than my dad. I'm very much like my dad. I just am. I am his son for sure. So I feel like there's a bit that it's gonna happen. A bit of you is gonna pass on anyways, but it's okay for them to be their own person.
Well, yeah, there's that whole nature versus nurture thing, right?
Yeah.
Like, I spent very little time with my biological father, compared to my years on earth. I was only really a part of his everyday life for about 4.5 years. Maybe, a little more frequently for a couple years after that, but not every day. But I'm very much like my dad. Just biologically, there's this way we process, the way we act, is very similar to each other, even though I wasn't raised to be like him in person.
Yeah.
So it is just the way that the, DNA, I guess.
Yeah.
My daughter could talk more about that for me. I don't understand genetics, but, there's things that you wouldn't think would be a genetic thing, but they are.
Yeah. This whole idea kind of reminds me of what we were talking about last week in Nacho Libre, about how Nacho was trying to be his own person and was forced on being a monk.
Yeah.
So, or friar.
Yeah.
So, yeah, be you.
Be you. Be you is you. Being you is the best you can be.
Yeah.
Don't be me. Be you.
If you're confused.
But not Brigham Young. Don't go to Brigham Young. There's probably better schools out there than that.
Yeah. So, as we were talking about, Ponyo's dad is very frustrated by all this waste. So much that he has decided that he's just going to wipe the world clean again. He talks about going to, I think, back to some prehistoric age. He's like, we're just gonna kind of rewipe the earth, create lots of tsunamis, and then start over again.
When that first fish crawled out onto the beach, that's what he wants to start at?
Yeah, basically.
Okay.
And it's there's this really cool parallelism we see between that and the story of Jesus, how there's this world that is corrupted and really deserves to be destroyed. But Ponyo becomes a human to save it. And Jesus became human to save us. So I think there's this really cool parallel that happens between these two stories where Ponyo becomes human to save us, just like Jesus did. It's I mean, she even runs on water. It's uncanny. It's I don't know if that was their idea of the story, but
no, I remember seeing that and like, oh, there's some symbolism there.
Yeah,
I mean, especially it's not something you expect from a Japanese storyline. At least with my predetermined judgment of what Japanese storylines should be. I have this idea of what anime storylines should look like, but obviously they're not all like that.
Yeah. Another fun thing about this movie is Ponyo really loves ham. Ham. She keeps talking about ham and can't get enough of it. And I kind of wonder if when the Jews were finally able to have ham again, like what that moment was like. Were they as excited as Ponyo was? Ham! Brisket. Or not brisket. Bacon. Yeah. I hate bacon, but for all the people that like bacon, I bet people were just going crazy for ham again.
Yeah. There's my kids, like I said, they love this movie growing up. And whenever they watched Ponyo, the way they wanted to watch Ponyo is with a bowl of ramen noodles with ham and peas. Because that's the way Ponyo ate.
It makes sense.
It is good. I'll give them credit. Yeah. I mean, we used to make this big deal out of it, that we would make a bowl of ramen just like Ponyo had. And it was really good. I mean, I've had lots of different ramens, and I will say that style is probably in my top 5. It's pretty good.
Nostalgia helps too. Nostalgia adds a lot of flavor.
Yeah. Well, and doing something with your kids. When you're a dad, you get to, when all of you are in the kitchen, you're doing this fun thing together. It's memories,
Yeah.
I don't have the nostalgia towards the movie, but I definitely have the nostalgia towards my kids. So I tease them that I hate this movie, but if they wanted to sit down and watch the movie with me today, I'd sit down and watch the movie with them today.
So as the story kind of progresses, Fujimoto and the sea goddess kind of start talking and come to this conclusion that Ponyo is going to become who Ponyo wants to be, and that's okay. But if Ponyo is going to become human, they have to really test Sasuke's love for her. Because if he doesn't truly love her, they say she's going to turn into sea foam, which sounds pretty drastic.
Now, I thought the impact of this idea of love was really weird because of how young these kids are. They're like 9 or 10 years old here.
I think they're younger than that. I think they're
like 5 or 6.
I think so.
Okay, so you're asking a whole lot out of a 6-year-old potentially.
Yeah, this is your companion for life. You're choosing right now.
Yeah. You're arranging your marriage right now at 6.
Yeah, so they're like, we're going to test your love. And also just the amount that these two have to go on this journey through the flooded island to try to find Lisa, Sasuke's mom, is crazy that there's just these 2 children that are just in this boat trying to find her. And all these adults see them and think, oh yeah, keep going on your...
Good idea, guys. Keep going.
Yeah, keep going. Try to find your mom. We're over here taking shelter with all these other adults because they're all stranded. But you have things under control. We can see. Kind of funny. We're just like, these are kids. They're so young, and they have all this power for some reason.
All this freedom.
Yeah, but they're supposed to display Sasuke's supposed to display his love for Ponyo, but doesn't really know that right now. And as they continue on this journey, and the magic is slowly starting to drain away from Ponyo, Ponyo becomes tired and needs to rest, and I think it's cool how Sasuke just he sees that Ponyo needs rest, and even though Ponyo could just get them there immediately, honestly, Ponyo's magical. She could just run across the water and take them where they need to go the whole time. But they're
on this journey together.
Yeah, they're on this trip together, and I think that's kind of the whole point of it. That's
kind of like Jesus with the disciples.
Yes,
I can just do this. I can just fix this problem by myself.
Exactly, but that's kind of the power of this idea of their love for each other. Is they're trying to do this together. So Sasuke continues to push the boat by himself, even though there's no longer any power to push it itself. He's like, well, I'll take the burden doing that, even though you could just get there yourself. And it kind of reminds me of Simon carrying Jesus' cross. I'm sure Jesus could have continued to carry his cross and keep going, but Simon stepped in and picked it up for him. And I think it's kind of that you're talking about. The whole idea of a disciples is coming in and participating with them to show them the love,
partnering with Christ.
Yeah, and it kind of ties into this kind of closing message that kids are just the best at loving people. I don't think you'll ever meet anyone more loving than a kid. It's kind of like that whole idea of innocence, and they're new to this world. They're kind of ignorant of the world, but they just want to be loved and to love.
Yes.
And I think that's something awesome about kids. And even Jesus recognized that kind of love. He talked about it in I think it was Matthew. He was saying that he wants his followers to be like kids, because once they become like kids, then they can enter the kingdom of heaven.
That childlike innocence.
Yeah. And I think that's something that is really hard for adults to embrace, is that childlike faith. It's something that you kind of grow out of, or you're kind of desensitized it by the world, but it is so important to your faith to keep that childlike innocence.
Yeah, I mean, I think about, before, going back to that original idea of judgmentalism, I can remember clearly that moment where my kids... their whole attitude towards, because they were not raised in a home where we talk about, people being different colors, or it just, everybody's the same, and they didn't have any perception that there was anything different. And Abigail, my middle, Bella went to Lemon Avenue, which most of the kids there looked pretty much like her. So I mean, there was a few other kids there, but it wasn't anything major. But Abby went to what's called TK, which is like, you go a year before your official kindergarten year goes. And it was in a school that was more in an area that had a lot of different cultures that were there. And she had no concept any of those kids were any different than her. I mean, they might have, a couple of her friends were Muslim, and they wore, the head wrap and the head dressing, the covering, and a couple of them were. She had one friend that was Sikh, which had a different kind of head covering, and but she didn't really think anything about it until, she had a birthday party, and so here she is, 4.5, 5 years old, has a birthday party. And then one of her friends, that was from Lemon Avenue, came to that birthday party and, makes a comment that I'm not going to share in this platform, but you can guess what that is. That, totally shattered that innocence that Abby had, because all of a sudden she realized that they were different.
Yeah.
She just saw these, little girls that, were friends before, but then all of a sudden, because of this one person's comments, all that was shaken.
Yeah.
And it's just so unfortunate that gets lost, because of the brokenness of the world that we live in. We live in such a shattered reality that it's almost impossible to keep that innocence. But it's something that this movie is trying to teach us, and what the Bible teaches us, and a lot of other movies teach us, is that we have to fight for it.
Yeah.
That we have to fight to retain that innocence as much as we can.
There's a quote Fujimoto says, after he finds Ponyo, and he says, if only you could remain innocent and pure forever.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's kind of what God's hope for us is.
Yeah.
Is he wants us to be innocent and pure forever. He wants us to stay like children.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure it hurts him to see us stray so far away. Kind of like what you were saying with Abby. Is I remember as a kid, kind of. Thankfully, San Diego is a very diverse area.
Yeah,
so growing up, same thing. I had lots of friends that came from lots of cultures. I didn't think anything of it. And I remember I didn't learn about racism at all until I was watching, or my parents had "Oh Brother, Where Art Thou" on, and there was the whole KKK stuff happening. And as a kid, I have no idea what's happening. So I asked them about it, and they explained it to me, and that just seemed so alien to me, disliking somebody because of a different color of their skin or something else. It just did not make sense to me, and it was hard for me to just believe that like that was something that was not too far away in our history in America.
No, I mean, it really wasn't. I mean, in the grand scope of the birth of a nation, that really wasn't that long ago.
Yeah.
It was what, in the 20s? 30s?
Yeah.
It was right around the Great Depression, so it would have been 30s, right? I don't know dates. That's not my thing.
Yeah, I think it's important to try to hold on to that innocence being a kid.
Yeah. And then trying to recapture it as an adult. Because inevitably, because of the world we live in, we're going to lose pieces of it.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean we can't try to recapture that innocence.
Yeah.
And when we find a flaw in our innocence, to try and change.
Ultimately, kids just want to be happy and have fun.
Yeah.
They just want to play. And as
they want friends.
As an adult, try to do the same. Just have fun. Hang out with your friends. Have a good time. Play some games.
Yeah.
Play tag, maybe. That'd be fun. Can you imagine us as a staff playing tag?
That would be the slowest, most boring version of tag ever. We just get in our cars and tag each other in our cars. I got insurance.
That sounds fun. We'll do paintball. That's the next closest thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's Ponyo for you.
Yeah.
And
it's not a long movie.
No. And we're recovering from COVID, so
yeah.
We may be lacking a little bit of energy today. And this episode might be coming a couple days late, but that's okay because
it's the world we live in.
It is the world we live in.
But we're glad you could be here with us. I hope that you have enjoyed Ponyo, but some of our other podcasts, feel free to check some of those out. We've got, the whole first season.
There's lots of episodes.
I
think there's over 30. There's a lot.
And there's more that will be on the way the next time around. We're going to be doing more of we try and alternate between a kid-friendly movie and just a family-friendly movie. So I think we have a few ideas that are floating around out there for our next episode. We haven't decided yet, but we really do hope that you tune in for on next Thursday for our next episode. And
give us more ideas if you have any.
Yeah, if you got something. Our parameters are nothing rated R. We want to keep it family friendly. There might be an R-rated movie that pops up here or there, but that's because it's R-rated because of difficult subject matter.
Yeah.
But we don't want to have any kind of, excessive sex or excessive language or anything like that. I think technically Good, Bad, and the Ugly was.
I think so.
A rated R movie.
I think it was. I think it's the only one we've done.
Yeah. And there might be another one that comes up at some point, but it'll be for a good reason.
Yeah. We like movies.
We do. I think we probably have all already watched enough movies that we could just randomly talk for days about movies without even having to rewatch them.
And with our minister brains, we watch any movie, we want to turn it into some kind of lesson.
Yeah. There's a couple movies that are rated movies, and I'm like, there's so much in it, but we can't promote that.
Book of Eli is one of them. I would love to do that.
Planes, Trains, and Automobiles.
That would be great too.
Such a great movie, but such bad language in it.
Just one scene, honestly.
Yeah, but it's a bad one. Anyways, we're getting sidetracked here. Yeah. It's that whole post recovery thing from COVID where we haven't seen each other in a week and
we just want to talk.
Yeah. So sorry that you have to go through that, but we hope that this finds you well, that you enjoy this time that we spend together every week, and then we'll talk to you next time.
Have a good one.